you here. And also welcome to all those teachers who are connecting in Facebook and LinkedIn. We're very happy to have you here. And well, as you know, today is day 7. So we still have lots of things to share with you. We are very happy you are here. And well, we are delighted to start this new session. So welcome from Georgia, Italy, Lithuania. Well, wow, it's great to have you here. There's lots of people from Spain, Mexico, Argentina. Welcome. Okay, so let's get started over here. And well, yesterday we have these great sessions with Matthew Long and with Michelle about the global communication backpack and also from choices to decisions. But we still have lots of things to go, lots of sessions to go in this week too. So today, as I was telling you earlier, is day 7, and we will be starting and dedicating this today's session to the generation of artificial intelligence. So we are glad you are here. And well, don't miss the sessions that we still have to go. Tomorrow, day 8, we will be focusing on expression. Yes. Day 9, we will be focusing on inclusion. You cannot miss any of these sessions. And day 10, of course, on challenge. So there's still lots to go. Don't forget, you can keep on registering, and please do, so that you can enjoy all of these sessions that we have in store for you. And well, so just before we get started, let me know what is your favorite drink that you are having with you today. Did you already grab some coffee, tea? What about a glass of water, some soda? Let me know in the chat. Coffee, very good. Mate, water, wow, great. Yeah, of course. Well, we're transmitting today from Mexico. It's getting pretty hot over here, so it's morning, I'm grabbing a coffee, but I'm pretty sure that later I will need some water. Welcome, please, and let's get started. Well, don't forget that you will be receiving your certificate of attendance along with your virtual goodie bag, and it will be arriving by email within 2 weeks, so stay tuned. And well, if you feel you're not receiving it, if you have any trouble, please make sure to email us to eltwebinars@macmillaneducation.com, and we will be happy to assist you. Well, so what's in store with us today? As I was telling you earlier, Generation AI, and we will be starting with Joan in this session of agents, assistants, and us, who's actually doing the work. And after that, Mark Arthur will be also joining us with The Human Edge, safeguarding teacher agency in the AI era. But well, you are not here to listen to me, and Joan is ready. Hi, Joan, how are you today?
Hi, Sheila. I'm good. Yeah, it's not the morning. I already done some work, but I'm full of energy.
That's
How are
great to
you?
hear. I'm good too, thank you. I'm really happy to have you, especially because, wow, your talk today, I'm pretty sure is going to be highly relevant for teachers. They will really adore what you will be sharing with us. But let me introduce you a little bit, okay? So
Thank you.
Joan is a freelance teacher trainer, but also an educational consultant, AI in education specialist, and EFL teacher. She has worked in several universities, language schools, and Erasmus training programs. But also, she has provided pre-service and in-service teachers and collaborates closely with ELT publishers. Well, she's also a co-author of the newly published book on AI literacy development by Delta Publishing. So, Joan, welcome. Please enjoy this session with the teachers. I will be here to assist you if you need me. And
Thank you.
go ahead. Teachers, enjoy Joan. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sheila, and welcome everyone. I could see from the chat box that you're from all over the world. I'm very happy to see so many countries and so many of you here. So I'm very happy to welcome you, and let's get started. I'll also start my timer just to make sure I don't run over. And let me just share my screen. Okay, and sorry, too many things covering my screen, but yeah, okay. Here we go. I think you should be able to see my screen now.
We
So
can see it now.
very good. Thank you so much for the feedback. So yeah, so the title of my talk is Agents, Assistant, and Us, and who's actually doing the work? That's already this kind of question is something that I'd like you to ask yourselves while you're listening to me today. And thank you for the introduction. I just also want to show you the cover of the book in case you're interested, because I just added that just before the talk to the PPT. But let's get started. I actually want you to imagine a situation. So we'll start with some um, imaginative activities. So I'd like you to imagine that you're in an escape room. I like going to escape rooms. If you haven't been yet, it's basically kind of a free time activity. Usually people go together in groups and they need to figure out the way to get out of the room. So it's usually a themed thing. In this case, we've got a pirate theme, and there are all kinds of tasks and riddles and things to solve. And that's how you can get out. And if you got out, you can be happy because you managed to succeed. But let's imagine that here's this little agent with you, AI agent Jack Sparrow, who's very helpful. And basically, you don't even have to think about anything. It basically just walks along or like next to you and does everything for you. As you can see, I'll do everything. You'll get out in no time. Now, how much, and feel free to add your ideas in the chat, how much would you enjoy a game like this? So there's this little agent who does everything, helps you, and answers all the questions, solves all the riddles. You don't have to even do anything, and you're out. So would you enjoy this kind of thing? And the good thing is, I again kind of lost my cursor, so I don't know what you're writing in the chat, but I might be able to get it back somehow.
Do you want me
Don't
to
you
read the
worry.
chat for you?
No, I found it. Thank you.
Okay,
I kind
great.
of wiggled around and now I can see. And very good. I'm so happy with these responses that you wouldn't like this kind of game and you would find it boring. Exactly. But we're gonna think about it, like think about why and find the reason why you would probably not like this kind of game. Um, oh, somebody actually said students in Asia would love it. Now, that's something to think about. So let's focus on our little agent for now, Agent Jack Sparrow, and let's focus on what agentic AI is. So agentic AI, or there are these terms, agentic AI or AI agents. This basically refers to an AI system or software that can independently make decisions and take actions to achieve specific goals. And the key terms here are autonomy and independent planning and adaptation to a changing environment. So what that means is that you just set them off and they can learn from experience, they can adapt to the environment, they can autonomously solve tasks, and they can also communicate with each other. So for example, when you try so-called agentic browsers, and there are now several of them, for example, ChatGPT Atlas, Perplexity Comet, and so on. And you can try them. They basically work on the basis that if you set a task, they are not going to stay within, for example, the ChatGPT window or the ChatGPT tab in the browser, but they can jump around tabs. So, for example, you say, okay, I want to travel to Mexico, to organize all of this. So it will start searching for information, browsing airlines, doing everything that it needs, maybe even, and that's the other thing, connecting to your calendar, checking when you're free, connecting to your email, maybe sending out emails that, dear colleagues, I'm on leave because I went to Mexico. So all of these independent actions are going to be organized and carried out by our little agent. Now you might think that this is amazing. You might already think like, ooh, this is maybe a bit too much. But let's just look at what else it can do. I want to show you this screenshot. This is actually a video shared by Anna Mills. You will find the link to this at the end in the references section. So I just want you to look at what ChatGPT Atlas is doing within a learning management system. A learning management system is like Google Classroom, right? So in this case, we've got Canvas, and I'd like to draw your attention to this part here, answering question 6. Also, sorry, I don't know why my cursor is doing weird things, but I managed to get it back. So look at the things that I circled. So it says answering question 6. It also narrates the process, like, okay, so kind of narrates the thinking process. And I also want you to look at this part. So I'll select true. It basically narrates the whole process, how it goes through the entire test solving procedure. And basically, this AI agent can just go into an e-learning platform and complete an online course from start to finish. And you, as a teacher, will not see anything suspicious. To you, it will basically look like a student was solving everything. You will never find out that the agent is doing the work behind a student's computer. Oh, somebody's saying that the agent is infiltrating my computer. Maybe this is like the machine is fighting back because I'm sharing all the secrets now with you. So let's go back a little bit to our definition. So we can now see that AI agents are powerful little things. They are still not there yet, so they make mistakes. Even in this video, if you watch the whole thing, you will see that at some point the agent cannot locate a question. So it managed to answer it, but it cannot click the answer because it cannot find the place where to click. And it's not like, it seems to us that it's not a big deal, but for the system to put this all together and make it work, maybe it is difficult. So there are still some mistakes, but it's a capable little thing. However, we need to also look at some other terms here. And you may find a lot of expressions, terms on the internet. Several sources and teachers and consultants talk about AI assistants. We need to mention things so-called shareable chats. And we need to mention custom GPTs. Google calls them gems, and Microsoft Copilot actually calls them agents. So the issue here is that all of these expressions seem to overlap. Let's clear this up and understand what's actually going on. So what we can say about AI assistants is that it's usually what we can also find in things like Magic School, for example, if you're using websites like this. So this is something that we can call like the feedback writing assistant or report writing assistant. You can do this in ChatGPT or any chatbot. You just create a specific prompt that defines the core task, and you can just set that as a start and basically use that chat conversation for the same thing again and again and again. So for example, in this report writing prompt, you can say, you are a teacher in 8th grade, you need to write reports or year-end reports for students who blah, 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 blah. So you set all the details that you need, and then you say, okay, so we got, I don't know, this term's grades. Here are the grades, write the report. And then you repeat the same thing the following term and the next term. So that could be an assistant. You specify the task, and it basically does what you ask it to do every single time. Now, shareable chats, I think they are a great idea for working with students or giving them additional activities that they can do at home. And I'm exploring this kind of thing. So for example, you create an argumentative essay developer or helper. It's basically a step-by-step dialogue style activity that you can share with students, and then they can have a go at it. For example, let's look at this argumentative essay developer. The prompt says, your task is to ask the student what their title or their proposed title is, then ask them what their thesis statement is, suggest some ideas for a better thesis statement. If the student selected or picked a final thesis statement, then ask them to write the first paragraph and then start arguing with them so that they can practice writing argumentative paragraphs. In the end, give some feedback to them. So basically, you build up a step-by-step prompt for an activity that you can share, because ChatGPT and Gemini and Claude conversations can be shared with students, and they can then use this mini interactive task on their own computers in their own way. So that's also a thing. And custom GPTs, or as Copilot calls them, agents, they are not really the agents that I discussed previously. They are still pretty limited, but they can be useful. They usually have uploaded knowledge, and they complete or full, they complete a specific task. For example, you can see it here, a school frequently asked questions chatbot. You upload all the documents that are important for your school, and instead of a human assistant or a human receptionist, the chatbot can function as an agent, but it's still limited because all it can do is search the uploaded sources and give a response. It's still going to be better than a customer service chatbot that, for example, you experience through Ryanair, but it's still limited. So it's not as complex as the agents that we saw before. So let's go back to our little Jack Sparrow, and let's think about a student version. And I could see in the chatbot that, or in the chat box, I'm mixing up these terms now, that somebody mentioned that students in Asia would love this kind of thing. So that's my question, actually. What do you think? So let's imagine an agent that would complete a student's essay writing task from start to finish. Research, writing, cross-referencing, creating charts, PPTs, personalized reflections, everything in just a minute, maybe 10 minutes. Now, would students like this? What do you think? And It could be, although I kind of, I'm getting back to chat, and you're saying definitely yes. I think so too. Definitely yes. But the question is, why? And I'm using the nihilist penguin meme here. I don't know if you're familiar with this meme, but why? So if you think back to my first question, you said that you wouldn't enjoy an escape room experience if there was this AI agent doing all the work for you. But, and some answers are coming in, but students would probably like an AI agent that would complete this essay writing task for them. So, what's the difference? And some of you mentioned laziness could be. Yeah, I mean, that's one way to put it, but let's see if we can reframe that idea that all students, maybe not all of them, but we tend to say that they are lazy. Um, we basically want to have some sort of intrinsically motivating task. So something that is truly motivating. To be honest, an essay writing task is not truly motivating. I mean, maybe I can explain it to myself that I need it because I need to get to university, but honestly, who enjoys an essay writing task? And then another thing we all need is a sense of achievement. So, for example, in the case of the escape room task, I went there because I wanted to be there. I wanted this experience. I want to enjoy myself. So there's the intrinsic motivation. And there's sense of achievement because if I manage to complete the individual tasks, I can, first of all, there's always some kind of reward. If I manage to unlock a little locket or I manage to turn on a light, there's instant feedback and gratification. But also at the very end, I get this big applause and ovation like, yay, you solved the task. So there's sense of achievement. So how can we apply this to teaching? And I'm going to share some tips with you. So this won't be a super, I mean, I can only give you guiding ideas. I won't give you specific task ideas, but sort of just starting points, how we can perhaps push our students in the direction of doing the thing. So we want them to do the work and not the AI agent to do the work. So one way to do this is that we could create or bring into our classrooms truly communicative tasks. Basically, the fundamental concept of communicative activities is that there's a real need to communicate because there's some kind of information gap. So they need to communicate with each other because one knows something that the other doesn't know. And also, there's some kind of authentic context. Usually, if you think about it, that's what we get in course books like talk to your partner about your weekend. And then, okay, why should I talk to my partner about my weekend? What exactly are we doing here? What's the point? And that's one of the things we can do is to look at these coursebook activities and rework them, maybe with the help of AI. Why not? We can use it for idea generation. That I've got this activity. Can you make it more communicative, truly communicative? Another thing we can do is task-based learning, which is in a way similar to this communicative task idea that we start with an authentic task. Students need to solve something. So there is some end goal. They need to, for example, maybe put together a box or a piece of furniture, or they have to do something that has a clear result. And the way they get there is not specified. So they can use their linguistic abilities and knowledge and try to solve the task. So there's again some sort of achievement at the end and true, authentic communication. Another thing that we can do is project-based learning, which again means that we create something that's worth doing or hopefully is worth doing. That's why it's a good idea to know our students and know the age group we are teaching so that we can give them a project or again ask AI to design a project for them that they would enjoy and that creates intrinsic motivation because they would like to be involved in such a thing and has some kind of end result like shoot a video or create posters that then we can show to the whole school or write project proposals that we can send to the Council of Europe or somehow we can make them see because this generation is very much aware of why should I be doing something that has no purpose? Or why should I be doing something that I don't see the value of? You might be thinking like, that is weird. But this generation is pretty much thinking in this way, like, I want to see how this pays off and how I'm going to get some valuable learning out of this. Project-based learning could be a solution. Again, escape room, but in this case, we don't have to take them to a real escape room unless you have time for that. We can create escape room style activities within a lesson. So basically, it's kind of like you set up stages and students work in teams, they solve certain activities, and you hide codes and other numbers and things behind the activities. It's great for revision. And in that kind of thing, again, you create a situation in which they feel that what they do is exciting and there's some reason for doing it. And my final idea would be, interestingly, but that's my personal experience. Let me know what you think about this in the chat. Multiplayer quiz games. Now, what I have in mind, I'm going to show you some examples in a second, is that, for example, Kahoot, but Kahoot is maybe getting a bit boring by now. There are these activities, and let me show you what I have in mind. Maybe too much information at first, but if you look at number 5, maybe you tried quizzes, which now changed its name to Wayground, and also Nearpod has this kind of thing. These are multiplayer quiz games where students can compete with each other as they are solving the quiz, and they need to climb a mountain or they need to fight each other. So basically, these incorporate video game-like elements to make the quiz more exciting. And what I found personally is that my students love this kind of game, love these games. Also, they love the option to repeat the quiz again and again and again. So they can compete with themselves as well. They can see like, okay, yesterday I got 50 points, today I got 100 points. And this somehow makes it more motivating for them and more rewarding. For the other ideas, I also included some links that you can click on. Interestingly, like for truly communicative tasks, I still find, and I honestly have to say that Jill Hatfield's Intermediate Communication Games, which was published in 1990, insane, but it's still one of the best resource books I use. It's full of motivating, truly communicative activities that my students consistently like. And the other links as well take you to great ideas and resource books and places where you can get some ideas. But feel free to use AI for this kind of thing. And hopefully, basically, with this approach, I'm not saying that we can avoid AI agents because we can't. This is now a new thing and the new thing. AI agents are probably going to be everywhere this year. That's what they propose. They being influencers in AI technology. So, what this really means is we need to think about online exams, tests, online discussion forums, for example, because AI agents are going to be amazing at these. They can just pretend to be students and solve these activities. So, if we are aware of all this, we can design activities that are truly motivating and exciting, and hopefully, our students are going to take part in these. So, this was supposed to be my final point that, in a way, technology is not going to stop. So all we can do as teachers is be aware of what new developments there are out there and try to plan our lessons in a way that can keep our students with us, and they will then do the work, not the agents. So thank you for being here. And I'm looking forward to any questions.
Thank you, Joan. Wonderful session. And well, as you can see, teachers were highly participative all of the
Yes.
session. They were really, really into it, very interested. And guess what? Yeah, we do have some questions.
Amazing.
So let's see. The first one over here is by Professor Barazzi. What's one simple needs analysis step that can improve the activities we plan in order to make them more communicative and authentic?
Hmm.
What would you recommend, Professor Barazzi?
Let me. Oh, I can see the question now. What's one simple needs analysis step?
Yeah.
Um, I'm not sure I fully get the question, I think, but I'm guessing that in order to make them authentic and truly motivating, we need to just be aware of the needs and interests of our students. I think that might be the question here, that we need to figure out what they are going to use this language for. So whether they know, the problem is when, and I kind of saw, I think, a comment in the chat box about that, if parents make them study the language, then it's a difficult case because then we need to try and find something that could make the whole learning process relevant for them. What I usually try to do is I ask them where they use the language. And eventually it turns out that they do use the language somehow, for example, in video game forums or YouTube comment sections. But once we find the authentic place where they use the language, we can then try and focus on that kind of context as a motivating environment because we need to find their connection with reality. Usually, lessons lack this connection, not because the teacher's bad or the lesson's bad, but because somehow there's no connection between the system, the requirements, and what happens in the class. And that's, I know it's a bigger problem, but we need to somehow overcome that.
Thank you, Joan. Thank you. And we have another question over here by Professor Fernando, and he
Mhm.
asks, does using AI change how we learn or how we think?
Yes, I would say yes. There are already several research articles and studies looking at this. There's a thing called cognitive offloading, which is often used in connection with AI and generative AI, using AI. Basically, what this means is that we want to solve the task super quickly. We just ask ChatGPT, or now we can just give the task over to an agent and we zone out because it will do it for us. But then that will slow down our mental processes. It won't make it's like not working a muscle. Now, the problem is that humans typically want the easier solution. So we will always go in that direction. And somehow we as teachers need to push our students in the other direction.
Yeah, true. Thank you very much for that, Joan. We have lots of questions. Let's choose another one over here. And it says, Wayground doesn't work well with dyslexic students. It gives points based on how fast you answer. It doesn't work for me. What could you suggest to Professor Miguel in these cases?
Yeah, that's I think, well, it's interesting because my experience is that Wayground seems to be the most special needs friendly platform. It has lots of accommodations for special needs students, and I haven't tried it yet, but I think you can like cancel out that option, this kind of speed favoring part. I think, I don't know. But yeah, that's a problem. And I don't really know. Well, if you cannot cancel that out, it is a problem which I cannot solve at the moment.
Yeah, sure. Well, thank you very much for your input.
Oh, I think, Sheila, I lost you. I'm not sure.
Hear me? Hello?
Yes.
Yes.
I
Okay, yes. Then we have AI is hindering our creative process. What does this imply?
Well, what does this imply? I mean, the downfall of humanity, I could say. But what I typically think in this case is that it's not necessarily AI that's hindering our creativity. It's always something that, so we sort of have these things in us and in ourselves that here's now this tool that brings out this problem, which we probably had before as well. And I just think that we need to sort of, well, I won't be able to give a good answer because we cannot just accept that this is the case. Because as teachers, we want our students to think creatively and work their brains and learn. But at the same time, I mean, okay, we can do this with our students. And what about the rest of the world? Because AI is now new to everyone. And we are all at the same level in this kind of thing. We can deal with our students, but the adults also outsource a lot of their thinking and work to AI. And no one can really influence them. And they are a huge majority.
Sure.
Unless, again, intrinsic motivation, unless they would like to keep their creativity. And I do see some movements for this. There are some people who say, I'm not going to listen to AI generated music. I'm not going to appreciate AI generated images. I want authenticity. So there are some movements. Yeah. I hope that people will find this important.
Of course. Well, really valuable, John, definitely. And well, we really appreciate you being here. It was a fantastic session. As I said
Thank
before, teachers were highly participative, really into the
I can
session.
see the chat box is just absolutely crazy.
Yeah, yes. Thank you very much for that, Joan. And well, if you could give us a last insight to wrap this session up. What would you say the teach? What would you tell to the teachers?
Hmm. I think keep it authentic, I would say. I just believe that, yeah, we might think that, okay, AI is ruining our teaching or our lives, but as long as we try to find this connection with reality and make our students see that what we're doing is actually or it makes sense, they will, I hope, stay with us and follow our lead and do the tasks we set them.
Thank you very much, Joan. Totally agree. And now look, all the teachers are going crazy with reactions, so they loved your session. Thank you very much. Thanks again.
Thank you.
And well, yeah, let's continue with this. Thanks a lot, Joan. I will see you later
Thanks,
this
Sheila.
evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Okay, well, so it's time to recharge batteries, to stretch our legs, grab some coffee or tea or whatever your favorite drink is. So let's take a 5-minute break, please, and get ready for the next session because we still have something else to go. 5 minutes. We will be back in 2 more minutes. Well, welcome back. I hope you had the chance to grab some coffee, to stretch your legs, because, well, we are ready to go to the following session. Just before we get started with this session, remember, you will be receiving your certificate in a period of 2 weeks. Within this period, if something happens, please email us at eltwebinars@macmillaneducation.com. Not only your certificate, but also your goodie bag, okay? Well, so let's continue. And now, Mark is already here. Hi, Mark. How are you today?
Hi, Sheila. Hi, everybody. I'm fine, thanks.
Ready?
Thanks for asking. Yeah, ready, yeah.
That's great to hear. Well, Mark is here with this wonderful session of The Human Edge, Safeguarding Teacher Agency in the AI Era. Well, most of you have seen Mark before, I'm pretty sure. And well, he is so into sessions, international and national ones and local ones. He is and holds a certificate in TESOL and a diploma in TESOL from Trinity College London. He has worked as a teacher trainer, examiner, and also a materials writer. Currently, he's working as a senior academic consultant for Macmillan Education and is a frequent speaker at national and regional conferences. So please, Mark, they are all yours. Enjoy this session. Teachers, enjoy the session. And remember, the Q&A chat is open for you to type your questions there. Thank you very much. Thanks, Mark.
Thanks, Sheila. Hi, everybody. Let me share my screen, check that that's working. 1 second. Screen 2, here we go. All right, should be looking at my screen now.
Not yet.
Yeah. Yeah, right?
Yeah, now it's loading. Thank you, Mark.
Okay, perfect, guys. Well, thanks, everybody. I hope you're enjoying this year's Global Teachers Festival. Seen some great talks. Thanks for joining me for this one. And what we're going to do in this talk is look at how we can work with AI in ways that serve and support our professional needs, but also strengthen our professional authority as teachers. Okay. As Sheila told you, my name is Mark Arthur. I'm an academic consultant with Macmillan. I've been involved in ELT now for about 25 years. Let's begin this session by looking at the concept of agency, first of all. There are lots of different definitions in the literature which come from different academic fields and different standpoints, but really agency is about making choices and decisions that affect and influence our professional identities and our professional working environments. The definition that we have on the slide works very well for today's session, which is professional agency is practiced when individuals or groups influence, make choices, and take stances in ways that affect their work and professional identities. And a very well-known framework of human agency breaks it down into the 3 areas that you can see on the slide there. So we've got individual agency, which says they're exercising control over your own actions. For a language teacher, maybe this would mean having the freedom to plan your lessons in line with how you see the needs of your students or in line with your particular teaching approach. There's collective agency, which is when we work together with others to achieve shared goals. For example, perhaps we do some peer observations with our colleagues. We can get some feedback on a specific aspect of our teaching. Planning, collaborating on the design of teaching materials with other teachers, maybe teachers from other curricular areas for CLIL or cross projects with teachers from different areas. And when we join professional organizations like TESOL or IATEFL, that would be an example of collective agency. And then, of course, there's proxy agency, which is when we rely on others to act on our behalf because they have more authority, more power, or more resources. So perhaps you need to improve some of the stuff in your classroom, a new projector or some new didactical materials, or you detect that there's a student with specific learning needs in your class, so you talk to your managers or your coordinators and try and obtain help with that. This is what we mean by agency. Let's have a look at a couple of real examples of teachers acting with agency from the literature. I'm going to read this out and then elaborate just in case anybody's watching on a small screen. So the first example here, real example, says French teacher in Canada embraced a plurilingual identity by drawing on alternative discourses to establish her legitimacy against native speaker ideology. So this is a teacher who is teaching a language that is not her first language. She's a non-native teacher. She experiences some kind of negative stereotypes, some kind of discrimination, perhaps through recruitment practices or just general attitudes that are in language teaching. And rather than being demotivated by that, she reads up on the literature, she reads up on the concept of plurilingualism, the idea that actually being multilingual or plurilingual is a strength, and that somebody that has successfully learned another language is much better positioned to guide students through that process than somebody who just by accident of birth is a native speaker but hasn't learned another language, for example. And she develops this kind of positive, legitimate teacher identity based on that alternative discourse. She's acting with agency. And a second example here, it says a pre-service teacher of English language learners agentively positioned herself as a bridge between her students and the local culture, integrating cultural teaching with linguistic assistance. This is a teacher in the United States. She teaches children of immigrants in the USA. Her job is to teach the language skills and language areas of the course, but she decides to incorporate a focus on intercultural skills and a cultural element in her classes so that it will be easier for her students to integrate more easily into society in the United States. She doesn't have to do that. She chooses to do that. She's a teacher acting with agency. So hopefully the concept of agency is clear. Now, why is this important? Well, scholars in this area, writers in this area, talk about how our professional agency shapes how we learn and grow as teachers. It shapes how our careers develop over time. For example, it influences maybe the kind of reading that we do outside of the classrooms, the professional decisions that we take, and ultimately it might affect whether or not good teachers stay in the profession, right? So agency is very, very important. Now, why is this relevant to the discussion of AI? Well, to understand this question, I went around the internet and I took screenshots of different AI tools on the web to think about what it is that AI can already do for language teaching and learning. So here's a couple of examples. First one on the slide here says, language practice, listening practice, reading practice, speaking practice. Instant feedback helps you improve quickly. Second one here, AI-powered teaching tools to support educators with lesson planning, differentiation, writing assessments, etc. Third one, instant English evaluation. This one sounds amazing. Maximize your potential with real-time feedback from your AI tutor. Perfect pronunciation. Embrace rephrasing. Enhance your accent. How about this? Create a text on any topic with any vocabulary. So you've got your vocabulary list from class, you stick it in the AI and it generates a reading text for you. And finally, this one, upload a whole folder of student work from Google Drive or Google Classroom and generate high quality personalized feedback in one go. Now, who wouldn't want to do these things? And it's very clear that AI can bring efficiencies and benefits to teachers and learners. But there's also, we need to be aware, a big crossover here with agency, because choosing, selecting, creating, adapting materials, planning lessons, thinking about how we give feedback, thinking about how we organize a course, how a course develops over time based on our student needs, are all areas that are traditionally associated with teacher agency. These are all areas related to choices and decisions that we make in the classroom related to our professional authority and our agency. So on the one hand, while we need to bring AI into the classroom because it's not going away and we need to take advantage of the benefits that it brings for teaching and learning, we need to do it in such a way that it strengthens our position and strengthens our professional authority in the classroom. We don't want to become over-reliant on these kinds of tools because it's through lesson planning, it's through creating and selecting and adapting materials that we perfect, or we move towards perfecting the art of teaching, right? That cannot be replaced. So we don't want to lose these opportunities to develop our teaching skills in real time. And decisions about what to do next in a lesson, what works, what doesn't work, whether a student passes a course or whether a student needs to review a course, these need to be made with human agency. The human needs to be in a loop to make those decisions. AI does not know the social emotional profile of our students. The AI does not know the cultural sensitivities of our class. AI does not know anything about the learning culture of our school. So we need to be in there making those decisions. And we also need to make sure that the outputs that we get from AI platforms match with the pedagogical culture of our classroom and our school. There's really interesting research on this. Teachers in Sweden talked about how the outputs from the AI platform that they were using was very, very American and didn't reflect the education culture in Sweden, right? So what I'm proposing today are 4 broad strategies that we need to take into consideration as we welcome AI into our classrooms and as we, move with the times and start using AI and taking advantage of all of the benefits that it brings, right? You can see the 4 areas on the slide. We're going to work through them one at a time, and we're going to start with this first one, which is engage in self-directed collaborative CPD, continuous professional development. On the slide, we have some teacher AI competencies. I'm going to read them out loud again in case anybody's watching on a small screen. As I read them out, think, to what extent do you agree or disagree with these statements? Okay, you don't have to answer, but just think about it, right? So I teach lessons that appropriately combine my teaching subject, AI tools, and teaching approaches. So to what extent do you agree or disagree with that? I can clearly explain the practical benefits and potential dangers of common AI tools like chatbots or generators within my specific teaching subject. I teach students how to behave safely and responsible when learning with AI tools. I actively seek out information and training to keep pace with new AI technologies and understand how they affect my long-term career. So just think for a second, to what extent do you agree or disagree with those statements? I'll give you 20 seconds or so to think about that. When I've talked to teachers about this recently, they will usually give themselves 5 for all of them. So these are all examples of AI competencies for teachers, and they are based on the competencies that are listed in this document from UNESCO, the AI competency framework for teachers. Most of you are probably familiar with this. It came out in 2004, but it's a very useful starting point for benchmarking teacher AI competencies and understanding what it means for teachers to be AI literate. It breaks down AI competencies into 5 core aspects. So we have human-centered mindset, which is about values and attitudes about AI. Ethics of AI, which is obviously about following guidelines, regulations, and safe procedures when using AI in the classroom. AI foundations and applications refers to the kind of conceptual knowledge and practical use of AI for different purposes. AI pedagogy obviously is about integrating AI into our work for teaching, learning, and assessment. And AI for professional development is about lifelong learning and collaboration. And then there are competencies at 3 levels of progression. So this is essentially a roadmap which goes from acquire, which is basic AI literacy, all the way up to create, which is where teachers are experts who are able to configure AI tools for specific learning purposes. So what's great about this document is it is very much focused on a human-centered approach. It emphasizes that it emphasizes teacher agency, and it maintains teacher accountability in the classroom and stresses that AI supports but does not replace teachers. And it also addresses issues around AI and some of the challenges around AI that I'm not really supposed to mention, but things like violation of data privacy, acceleration of climate change, and widening of societal inequalities. So very, very useful starting point to understand what it means to be AI literate. The descriptors are quite detailed. They look like this. I'm not going to read it, but just to give you an idea, but it's free to download and it's an amazing starting point. If you're a teacher and you want to know what it means to be AI literate, or if you're a teacher trainer or a coordinator who's responsible for training teachers in the use of AI, this would probably be the best place to start. Now, of course, there's lots of stuff available online. The European Union has an amazing course called AI for Teachers, or it's shortened to AI4T. And as part of that course, there's a free course book with GPT prompts for teachers covering a wide range of different areas: lesson planning, differentiation, introducing culture into the classroom, presenting different language topics, and it comes with prompts that teachers can use in class. Again, free to download and a fantastic place to start with using GPT in your classes. It's part of a broader, massive online open course, or MOOC for teachers. Here we see it, AI4T, a video-based course which covers a very broad range of teacher competencies. So this would be a great place to start. It also makes sense to connect with teachers at your school, teachers in your local community, to establish communities of practice where you can get together and you can talk about, for example, how you can use AI in your lessons. Maybe you can plan lessons that integrate AI resources, AI tools, or AI competencies. Or if your school is already using AI platforms, maybe you can evaluate the tools in terms of their pedagogical and cultural appropriateness. And perhaps you can explore how to communicate to parents the role that technology and AI can play in supporting interaction, or supporting human interaction in the language learning process. But it makes sense to get together with your colleagues and share expertise. There's research that teachers, I mean, it's obvious, right? Research, things are always obvious once research points them out, right? But teachers benefit from collaboration. It's motivating. We develop a sense of community. There's even research that shows, for example, that there's lower rates of absenteeism in schools where teachers collaborate. So it makes sense to get together with your colleagues and share your expertise and share ideas. And finally, something that we've been saying for almost 20 years now, developing online professional learning networks through social media. A lot of this used to be done through Twitter, not so much now, but people like Joe Dale, Nick Peachy, Sydney Sullivan are all active on LinkedIn and Substack, and they're sharing amazing resources. And not just them, Joanne, who was on earlier, is also always publishing resources online too. Of course, YouTube, webinars from people like the British Council. At Macmillan, we have our own Advancing Learning podcast, and there are organizations like the AI Education Project, which has resources for teachers, curriculum planning documents, infographics, policy guidelines for teachers and for using AI, right? So first strategy for safeguarding our professional agency is to engage in self-directed collaborative CPD. The second is to be the human in the loop. I'm just going to pause for a moment and ask you to think again. Imagine you are the teachers at this school. You are present in this highly motivating teachers meeting that we see here, and you are told that for the next school year, we are going to implement an AI platform for lesson planning and assessment. What questions would you like to ask about the platform? If you're in this meeting with these teachers and with your manager or coordinator here, and you're given this information, what questions would you like to ask about the specific AI tool that is going to be implemented? I'll give you a few seconds to think about that. What would you like to know about it? What questions would you have? Let's have a look at the chat. So when I open the chat in these sessions, I always get distracted and then start answering people in the chat out loud. Yeah, some great questions. Usability, is it easy to use? What data is it? Yeah, exactly. Exactly. These are great questions, guys. Thank you for participating. It's nice to know that people are actually listening. So yeah, being a human in the loop means being able to ask critical questions before and after adopting any AI tool, any technological tool, so that we can kind of engage in professional conversations with providers of platforms, publishers, but also parents, school owners, and managers about exactly how tools, my English is going weird, about how tools will be used, right? So when we have, I mean, if we're experts in AI, or if we're experts in technology, like Joanne, for example, it's easy to ask these kinds of critical questions. But if you're just starting out on this AI journey, there's an amazing resource from the European Union, which is called Ethical Guidelines on the Use of Artificial Intelligence and Data in Teaching and Learning for Educators. And it lists critical questions under different categories that we should ask when thinking about adopting or implementing an AI platform. Now, amazingly, for the convenience of this session, there are questions on the topic of human agency, and they include the questions that you see here. For example, is the teacher role clearly defined so as to ensure that there's a teacher in the loop while the AI system is being used? How does the AI system affect the didactical role of the teacher? The third one here, are procedures in place for teachers to monitor and intervene, for example, in situations where empathy is required when dealing with learners or parents? And I love this one at the end. Do teachers and school leaders have all the training and information needed to effectively use the system, et cetera, et cetera? This document is amazing. If you're just starting out on this journey and you're not sure what questions you should be asking, this is a great resource. And it covers questions in many, many different areas. So we have on the slide here, transparency, diversity, well-being, and as some of you mentioned in the chat, data governance. So do teachers and school leaders understand how specific assessment or personalization algorithms work within the AI system? Is it accessible to everyone in the same way? How does it affect the social emotional well-being of learners and teachers? Are there mechanisms to ensure that sensitive data is kept anonymous, right? And so a fantastic resource, and these are questions that we should be asking about the implementation of any tool, but we're not alone. There are amazing free resources that we can use to be able to ask these questions, okay? So we also need to be able to ask these kind of critical questions with regard to pedagogy. All of us as teachers have strong beliefs about what is good teaching, what is effective teaching, what are effective teaching practices. And ideally, these would be based on evidence, on research. So if you've read up on the SLA or second language acquisition research, for example, you know that massive exposure to input is required for learning to take place. You know that learning is essentially an implicit process. You know that learners don't learn in straight lines. If the intention is to adopt some kind of platform or tool for AI in your classrooms, how does it support those beliefs? Is it going to provide the students with massive amounts of input, varied input in different contexts? Is it going to recognize developmental mistakes and not overcorrect natural mistakes that students make? For example, things like that. At my school, for example, if we were introducing a platform just for grammar to generate grammar practice exercises, how does that really support learning? Is that what we really need? We need to be able to ask these kinds of pedagogical questions, as well as questions about the functionality of the platform. Right? Hopefully that makes sense. So, going to move on to the third strategy, which is to adopt and excel with innovative teaching practice. All right. And a quote from Ethan Mollick's Co-Intelligence book, an amazing book about AI, an amazing introductory text on the topic of AI. Ethan Mollick amusingly says, it's a blow that the first impact of large language models at scale was to usher in the homework apocalypse. So the homework apocalypse here is this idea that now with AI, traditional assignments, I don't know, like a 4-paragraph essay can be done in seconds by AI. And maybe students are going to question, what's the point? I think Joanna said this, what's the point of doing this kind of homework if AI can do it automatically for me, right? And so perhaps this is an opportunity for us to kind of change the way we do things in the classroom, to stop relying on these old-fashioned techniques and to adopt more active learning approaches in the classroom. Now, most of you are probably familiar with the model of flipped learning. This is a kind of visual representation of a flipped classroom that I created a few years ago for a different talk, but it works well here. The idea of the flipped classroom, just in case you don't know, is that we give the students some preparation work to do before class so that there's more time in class for active learning, higher order thinking skills, and in our case, production and communication. As teachers, we always complain that we never get to the speaking activity at the end of the lesson. Well, the flipped classroom fixes that by having students do some of the receptive work or study work before class. In a flipped model, typically there's a preparation stage where we ask the students to do something at home. Could be study, could be exercises, could be research. But there needs to be an engagement strategy. They need to know they're going to be checked on that. So when they come to class, there's a verification stage where we check that they did the pre-class work. It doesn't have to be me personally checking their work, but maybe there's a Kahoot quiz or some other kind of quiz. Maybe there's a self-assessment. How did you get on with the task? What was challenging? Or maybe there's pair share or group work where the students share their research. And then finally, there's an active learning stage with high order thinking skills, problem solving, collaboration, communication. So if you think like classic kind of ELT methodology, a debate in the preparation stage, students read 2 points of view on a controversial topic, or they research, not read, they research 2 different perspectives on a controversial topic in the preparation stage, but they know when they come to class, they're going to have to share their research. They come to class in the verification stage. We assign them to debate teams. They share their notes. They plan their arguments for the debate. And then in the active learning stage, they engage in the debate and they use their research and their notes from the previous stage to challenge the thinking and the reasoning of the other team. Right, so that's how a flipped learning model would work with a debate. Imagine, for example, students in the preparation stage are given a complex article to translate or simplify or summarize. They bring the outputs to class, they share with a colleague, and then they report to the group how the meaning was distorted or lost or changed through the process of simplification or translation. That's what a flipped classroom model might look like. And so we're using AI skills. They're developing their AI competencies, but they're also, doing communicative activities in the classroom, and there's more time for production, communication, higher order thinking skills. I feel like I'm waffling, guys, so I'm going to move on to the next point. It also might mean that we start to develop students' AI competencies in the classroom. And I don't think it will be long before we see English course books from Macmillan and other publishers which integrate AI competencies with language skills in lessons. Now, one framework of AI competencies from students that we see on the slide here breaks the competencies down into areas like accessing, which is being able to choose the right AI tool to match specific needs. But then, the one that probably gets the most attention in the literature and social media is prompting, being able to create good instructions for AI tools to get useful answers. But on top of that, students need to be able to check that the outputs are reliable, compare them to trustable, reliable sources. And students need to be able to use those outputs and those results in an honest way that shows their own ideas and their own learning. There was a question in the previous session about that issue, about how AI affects students' thinking or intelligence. And I think it's just a question of making sure they develop these competencies to know that there is a right way to use AI in order to show their own thinking. I mean, it's obvious when something, as teachers, it's obvious when your student is handing in just AI outputs. So adopting innovative teaching practices means probably developing these kinds of competencies in class. Nick Peachy shows some great examples of this. In one of his books, I think it's AI and critical thinking, he suggests prompts that we can give students which aim to develop their critical thinking skills and their language skills. This is an amazing, I'm going to read this out, forgive me, but just in case anybody's watching on a small screen. So the aim here is to develop logical arguments, and the prompt is act as a critical thinking expert, help me develop my arguing skills. I'm an intermediate level learner of English. Do this by providing the first part of an argument and asking me to complete or support the argument. Wait for me to complete the argument and then provide the first part of another argument. So for example, the AI responds to the prompt with mobile phones should be banned in the classroom, and then the student follows up with a logical argument for or against that point and continues. You can imagine how this could work in a flipped classroom. Students could be given could be asked to do 5 of these, and they bring them to class, share them with a colleague, and then report them to the group. Nick, I see lots of applause there for these prompts. This is not my work. This is Nick Peachy's work. He also gives the example of identifying bias. So here's a prompt that students could use: act as a critical thinking expert, read through the answers, read through this news article and identify areas where the writer may be showing bias. Describe the areas of bias in a suitable way for a B1 level teenage English language learners. Right? Great example there of how students could develop their English skills and their critical thinking skills through AI at home. And Morehouse and Wong take a similar approach, but they focus on self-regulated learning by showing students how to develop prompts for generating practice exercises for themselves. So I'm a high school student learning English and I struggle with verb tenses and phrasal verbs. Please create a quiz with 10 sentences where I have to choose the correct verb tense and explain why the answer is correct. So the idea is that we are showing students how to become self-regulated learners while using AI. Right? So those are just some examples, developing students' AI competencies, of how we might adopt and excel with innovative teaching practices. Now, the final strategy that I'm going to talk about in this session is to bring peace to the classroom. And you're probably looking at me thinking, this long-haired guy talking about peace, this is going to be some hippie stuff, but really it isn't. It's very, very interesting. Hopefully you'll agree with the sentiment on this slide, which is that AI can give me the answers, but my teacher gives me the reason to care about the answers. We are no longer the source of all knowledge. AI knows way more than we do. So perhaps our role now is accepting that AI has the answers, and our job is to make students want to be in the classroom and to create an environment that students feel comfortable participating in. The idea of peace is actually an acronym from the researcher and Professor Don Saussure, and it stands for the points that you see on the slide. So the P of peace is preparation, which is obviously being prepared for your classes, being familiar with your content, having alternative activities up your sleeve, right? Being ready to go wherever the lesson takes you. Expertise are all the things that we do well as teachers. So for language teachers, it's about being able to scaffold input so that it's comprehensible to your students, giving instructions in such a way that everybody knows what they're supposed to do, asking questions that support learning, giving feedback in a motivating way that helps students continue to learn. Authenticity refers to being able to connect with students in a way that goes beyond just the subject material. So if you're teaching language, maybe the students connect with you as a person as you share your passion for languages and culture, or elements of your own language learning struggles and your own language learning journey. Caring is about understanding when students are low on confidence, for example, and adapting the demands of a task accordingly. And finally, perhaps most importantly, engagement, which is about, as I mentioned before, creating conditions in the classroom where students want to participate, they want to try out the new language, they want to work together, and they want to take risks, right? So maybe our job is more about bringing peace to the classroom than about having all of the answers. AI can't do these things. We can do these things, right? What does this look like in practice? Well, I was delighted as an older member of the English language teaching community to see that Joanne mentioned Jill Hadfield in her talk. And many years ago, Jill Hadfield published a book called Classroom Dynamics. And those activities, 30 years old, are more relevant today than they ever have been. So let's have a look at a couple of her examples for building a positive classroom dynamic. These are examples of how we might bring peace to the classroom. We're going to think about the linguistic and non-linguistic aims of these activities. So the first one here, shaking hands. Students circulate the room in 3 rounds. First, they shake hands with everyone. Post-COVID, maybe this is fist pumps. Is that what you call that? Fist bumps? Then they shake hands and say their names. And then they go around again and they introduce someone to someone else that they met. So we circulate the room in 3 rounds, right? And we get to know each other. Obviously, we're practicing language for giving personal information, for introducing each other, but we're also breaking the ice and getting to know our classmates at the start of the course. Now check out this one. You think that was outstanding, Gabrielle? Check out this one. Group advert. This is one of my favorite activities. After analyzing language from written ads, students use positive superlative adjectives to design an ad promoting their class. The goal is to persuade another teacher to take over the group by showcasing its strengths. Okay, think about that for a second. The students are going to write an ad about themselves, about their strengths as a group, to convince another teacher to take over the class next semester. And it might look like this: the most amazing class ever. Are you ready to teach the friendliest, funniest, most enthusiastic group of students in London? We are the most curious, most creative, most supportive teammates. Teaching us will be the most rewarding experience of your career. So look, lots of target language in here, but also building a sense of belonging, building a group identity. One more, again from Jill Hadfield from 1992. If I were you, students work in pairs, preferably back to back, and complete a questionnaire as if they were their partner without conferring. Then they compare answers and discuss accuracy. So look, this is a classic conditionals exercise, which usually we'll just do with students in their workbooks or whatever. But how about we do it back to back and I try and anticipate what you would do in these situations. We then turn around and we compare our sheets. Not only do we practice conditionals, practice language, but we build empathy, we get to know each other, right? And it's highly communicative at the same time. There's a real purpose to the communication, right? So these are just examples of how we might bring peace to the classroom. I think I'm going a little bit over time. Let me just give you one more example just to move beyond Hadfield's 1992 book. Lately in language teaching, there's been a focus on developing social emotional competencies, well, at least in course books. And I think this is a good thing. There's an activity that I do with teachers in workshops sometimes. It's called the yes, but game. And this is where we get teachers to think about a negative. We can get your students to do it as well, of course. Think about a negative situation. Think about all of the negatives that you associated with this challenging situation, and then try to reframe those negatives with the phrase yes, but. And oftentimes I'll tell teachers, for example, in the context of this session, I'll tell them, you are responsible for implementing an AI platform at your school. You know, what negative thoughts do you have? Write them down. And they say things like, I don't know much about AI. And then they have to reframe those and they can collaborate on those reformations, if that's a word, with the phrase yes, but. So yes, but it'll be a great opportunity for you to learn about it. And here we're practicing English, but we're also developing social emotional competencies to be able to deal with challenges and look at challenges in a positive way. Just another example of how we might bring peace to the classroom. Okay. So this is what we did today, I think. I suggested that there are 4 general strategies that we can use to safeguard our professional agency and to make sure that we stay relevant and to make sure that there's human accountability in the classroom. Self-directed collaborative CBD using frameworks like the UNESCO document, being able to ask those kind of critical questions when we talk to parents, when we talk to publishers, when we talk to colleagues at the school. Innovative teaching practice, like integrating AI competencies into our lessons and bringing peace to the classroom by building a positive classroom dynamic. if you found that interesting, here are some references. And I think, well, that brings me to the end, guys. Thanks very much for listening. All, I don't know how many there are now, 1.2K. That's my biggest audience ever, Sheila. There you go. Thanks, everybody.
Awesome, Mark. Yeah, it's a very great audience, a huge one, and actually highly into the session. They were participating a lot. They didn't stop typing comments and sending reactions. So very interesting. Thank you very much for this, Mark. And we have a couple of questions over here. If you allow me, I will be reading them for you.
Joanne's questions were so hard. Be nice to me, Sheila. Come on.
Okay, I will try. But it's not me, it's the audience. They are so interested. So we have this first question by Ms. Rowland. And well, the question says, for flipped learning, would you ask the students to look for the vocabulary and grammar, even if they haven't encountered that? Or do you use like article or video with a first approach? Like, what would you suggest in this situation?
Yeah, it's always hard to understand. It's always hard to understand exactly what's meant by a question like that. But I think researching vocabulary can definitely be part of a preparation stage of a flipped model, right? So if students know that they have to look for certain words on a particular topic, that could work. If you're talking about language that students don't know in a reading or listening text, it kind of depends, right? Because it depends what the purpose of the lesson is. But if we want students to comprehend what they're reading and listening to, then perhaps we would give them a glossary or translation glossary to support comprehension there, which they could use at home while they do the research or while they work with those texts. Yeah, I think that would be perfectly acceptable if I understood the question correctly.
Thank you. I'm pretty sure you did. Or the teacher will text again and we will be glad to read the question again.
Send me an
no
email.
problem.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. And well, here's another one. And this question says, how can we use AI authentically in a meaningful way that brings real change in our students' skills and knowledge?
Yeah, I think those examples from Nick Peachy, the prompts that he suggests for analyzing texts, those would be a good way. So students can use those prompts at home to prepare for lessons in class. Or, I mean, teachers that I've talked to that work in literature programs tell their students up front, these are teachers that work here in Mexico, I'm not going to accept work that's just produced by AI. But if you use AI, you need to tell me what you did. And so understanding that students will be using AI in their professional working lives, in their academic careers, I think we probably need to allow them to do that, but we need to make sure that there are classroom guidelines or school policy on what's acceptable and what's not acceptable. And when students submit their work, maybe as part of a portfolio process or part of meetings with students about their work, about their progress, they need to share how they used AI or explain what AI was used and how it was used in the process of producing the work. Yeah.
Sure, I agree. Thank you very much for that, Mark. And one more question over here. How can AI be used to promote shared responsibility for learning between teachers and students?
I think the examples from Morehouse and Wong, like creating prompts to generate your own practice activities, is a really good example of that. So anything that kind of pushes self-regulated learning. I mean, this session has focused, I suppose, on generative AI, but of course, generative AI is not the only kind of AI. There are things like flashcard apps, which use some kind of AI principles for spaced repetition and will facilitate the effective learning of vocabulary items. So, I mean, using different technology tools to support learning would be one way to do that. The most obvious one would be flashcard apps, but also, reading, extensive listening outside of the classroom, any tool that can support those kinds of things. I've seen teachers. I've seen teachers on LinkedIn, for example. Joe Dale's got lots of examples of teachers using Google tools to generate graded readers. So maybe teachers and students could collaborate on a graded reader project and generate graded readers using AI tools, and they could share their graded readers in the class. But if you search for Joe Dale and work on graded readers, there's some really good stuff on that.
Great, great. Thank you very much, Mark. Well, it's been a pleasure to have you here. Teachers really enjoyed this session. Thanks again on behalf of all the attendees and also on behalf of Macmillan Education, Mark. Thanks a lot and enjoy your day.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
Thank you. Okay, but please don't go because I have some information, some important information to share with you. You have been also, you have been asking for some reason I'm not allowed to share anymore. Let me try again. Oh, okay, here we go. Now I can. So, you keep on asking about your certificates of attendance. Please remember that the certificate of attendance along the virtual goodie bag will arrive by email within 2 weeks. I know that some of you have already received 1 or 2 and you have attended all of them, but please remember that it is within 2 weeks, okay? If the time has elapsed and you haven't received them, or if you notice there's something wrong, somebody was also writing in the Q&A that the name was misspelled, please email us at ELT webinars. It's already here. I'm sharing it in our screen, ELT webinars at macmillaneducation.com. Please feel free to email us if you find any issue. But remember, within 2 weeks is the period of time that you will be receiving your certificates of attendance along with the virtual goodie bag. Some of you have also been asking if you are going to receive the presentation stuff. It's all part of the virtual goodie bag, okay? Great. And well, please don't forget, day 8 is tomorrow, and we are having these very powerful sessions in terms of expression. Learning through play, adapting to young children natural preferences, and by Miriam Monterrubio. And after here, we will have Step into Character, Nurturing Confident Speakers in the EFL Classroom by Miranda. Please, you cannot miss them. You can still register. If you haven't done it, please go ahead and do. We will be glad to see you there. And tell me, you can use the chat. On a scale of 1 to 10, how confident are you using AI tools? Let us know. Come on. I want to see. You were highly participative, so I want to see your participations over here. Wow, there's a big mix of it. Okay, 7, 6, 4, 3, 10. So there are bunches of different points of view. Well, taking into consideration this dynamic that Mark said, but I mean, I can feel a 2, but I'm sure I can learn deeper about this, okay? So, well, this is a great beginning if you are just starting with AI tools, and we're pretty sure that there are tons of things to learn. And if you feel like a 9, 10, 7, well, there's always space to share and to keep on learning. Thank you very much for participating. Thanks. And well, I don't want to say goodbye, but see you soon. And best of all, see you tomorrow. Keep on enjoying. Have a great rest of the day.